Hello and welcome to Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that reviews romance novels $5 and under. I'm your host, Becky Feldman, and I hope you are ready to blast off in more ways than one because we have got a supernova of an episode today. That's right, we are headed to the final frontier. And I don't just mean space. I mean the final frontier of studs, where the rocket you're riding is an intergalactic dreamboat. That's right, it is time for another alien romance. So get those oxygen masks ready because you're gonna be short of breath. In a good, sexy way, not in a bad way. You know what I mean. Anyway, today's book is Stolen by Starlight by Sara Ivy Hill, which is currently $4.99. And to make today's episode even more out of this world, I have two hilarious and thoughtful guests today. Anne Rieman and Ryan Perez are here. They're lovely friends of mine who host one of my favorite movie podcasts, Mama Needs a Movie. I feel so honored that they brought their expertise in cinema and storytelling to today's episode. So please enjoy this review of Stolen by Starlight. In 10, 9, 8. I'm just kidding. Let's start the show. Ryan, Anne, Mama Needs a Movie. Welcome to Too Stupid to Live.
Hello, thank you so much for having us on Too Stupid to Live.
I mean, Ryan, it's great to have you back. Anne, this is your first time.
It is my first time. I'm a virgin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to another episode where you were talking about like being over the idea of losing your virginity or giving it up, and I totally agree with that take of like it's not a great look to be I'm parting with the best part of myself or something.
100%.
Creeps me out. So
it's creepy.
Already on board.
Well, I'm so glad you're on board. Ryan, how does it feel to be back? How has your life changed for the better since you first were on?
Oh God, I don't think anything's really changed for the better. But the book, this book is. I mean, I'm glad I survived whatever it is for 4 years, however how long it's been, 5 years, to talk about another book. I'm glad I lived another day to speak about Stolen by Starlight. I feel like this is quite different.
Do you want to sing Stella by Starlight? Do you want to sing the title?
I know, that's all. Every single time I look at it, I'm like, Stella by Starlight. I think it's a Stella. Do people know that song, Stella by Starlight?
I don't know that song.
Oh, it's a pretty song.
Okay.
It's that's what every time I was like looking at the name of the book, Stolen by Starlight, I was like, yeah, it's Stella by Starlight. But the first time that I spoke with you, Becky, on this show, it was about a different book called The Spy Master's Lady.
That's correct.
Which was more kind of historical romance, and this is a very different kind of style. This is like a contemporary thing. There's like a lot of new pop culture references in it and stuff, and it's also like dirty. I felt like it was slightly dirtier, so I was a little scandalized by this time.
I knew you would be. I just because I was thinking the book that we read, is a story, and this is like an entirely different, absolutely bonkers kind of genre for you. I feel like. This is I'd be curious where it sits with you. Like, we're no strangers to this on Mama Needs a Movie. I mean, we talk about some scandalous kind of stuff there sometimes, Well,
Sure,
and
we had you on to talk about the film. We had you to talk about The Lost City,
right?
When that came out, which was kind of a romance themed,
but not explicit enough. I have to say.
Well, compared to this, yeah.
We didn't see any dicks. We saw nothing. The thing that really stood out the most for me, maybe this is getting into the
go ahead.
One big question I had was, if he's fighting with knives strapped to him and his dick strapped to him, isn't that the most vulnerable possible way to fight? To have your dick like not only naked, but like with it in one location, so it's not wiggling around. It's just like easy to just stab it.
I guess it's like a bra. A dick bra.
Like a dick bra.
I mean, but you don't have knives on your bra. You don't have...
that you know of. But
oh,
yeah.
Okay, well,
I see it as maybe like, okay, I'm gonna get into it. maybe the dicks in this alien species isn't as sensitive as the penises on human beings.
But it's always twitching. Feels very sensitive.
It's sensitive to good things. Maybe like you could throw a ball at it and it's like, oh, I don't feel anything.
Oh,
I'm
you
an
know
alien.
what?
Yeah.
He does, because there's never a mention of any testicles, but he has
right.
them.
Yeah, I think
No,
she
they
grabs
mention
his balls.
testicles.
Yeah,
They
she
mentioned
grabs his
testicles.
balls.
Yeah, she grabs it. She cups his balls like in a not even a sexual moment. Like she cups his balls for like comfort at one moment. Like
Aw.
Yeah, she's
Ball
like,
hug.
she does a little thing where she's like, hey, talk to me, man. Something's wrong. And then it was like, I cupped his balls. And it's like, is that what you do?
Is that yeah, is that, I mean, hey, of all the couples in all the world, there's someone who's like, I can't talk about it. Let me cup your balls. Okay, I can.
Yeah. Okay, this works. This works. Thank
Let's
that's
be
most
better.
couples. That's almost every couple. I feel like, isn't
But
it?
not in
You
a
never-
sexual way, just in a like blankie for your balls kind of like, I would say it, but now that they're cupped,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
So
like
it's
a
a
hand
lot of-
hug. It's a hand hug.
Right, but I don't have them, and I just find them weird all the time.
Well, a hand hug is a handshake. That's what
Fair.
that's what a hug. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what a hug is. Yeah, yeah.
Well, unless his balls get in the way, in which then it's two hands gently hugging.
Yeah.
That seems like a very official, like if you're really going to make an agreement, like 3 countries who have been at war, and then you do like testicle handshakes, because that's more vulnerable than like, all right, we shook hands, we can't go back
Yeah.
on that. But like, I'm holding your balls. That's how much we trust each other.
That's what
It's a
they
real
did at
sign.
Malta, or that's,
Yeah, they
that's
did
below
that.
the frame. Yeah,
Stalin's hand just like wrapped around FDR.
that's why it didn't
Yep.
work. It didn't work out.
That's why they were wearing all those blankets to get their hands underneath.
And that's why you're a communist. No.
Yeah, that's how we became communists, because of
Got
all the
it.
balls hugging.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is not as ball heavy as I don't know. I don't read romance novels.
You don't read
so.
romances. Well, I was going to ask you, Ryan has read it, but have you ever, like, you don't read romances regularly, but have you ever picked one up and
You
read
know
it?
what? I had my grandmother had a friend who was like, I don't know, like way, way younger than her, like younger than my mom even. She was a young English lady who was an assistant on a lot of movies, and she would be like, she was an assistant on Star Wars.
Ooh.
And like all these crazy people. Val Kilmer she worked for all these people, and so she had all these great stories. And so my grandmother had an extra room, and she'd be like, oh, you can always stay there, and she would always be at holidays and stuff. And she read romance novels, so she would give me and my sister bags of clothes when she was done with them, so we were dressed kind of like slightly cool middle-aged women when we were children.
Yeah, I get that. I was too. Yeah.
But we had the same size feet. So I would get the shoes. And then there was always a bag of romance novels that were like available if we wanted them. And I was always too uncomfortable to actually take them home, except one I did take home that involved a sex scene in a stable. It was like the most
Ooh.
classic kind of like heteronormative sex in a stable kind of thing.
Sure.
And that's all I remember, just like, oh my God, this is the thing I've heard about romance novels. And there it is.
Yeah. There it is. Sex in a Stable.
Sex in a Stable, donated by a lady.
And you think about it, because it's like, it's so romantic, but it's like, I picture it and it's like, but in reality, I'm like, that's so dirty. Like, not dirty, like fun
Oh,
dirty.
in a stable?
Yeah, I'm just like, what if like
They're
hay
pooping in
gets
there.
somewhere you don't want hay to get into, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
This is a-
rolling the hay, like people love this for some reason. It seems very
Yeah.
prickly.
It's
Very.
such a weird thing, because you think, I mean, you hear in romance movies, and especially in any kind of pornography, this becomes a thing of, okay, well, where's the setting of the thing? And I feel like most people, if you talk to them, they're just like, I just like having sex in a clean bed. Like I don't want anything other. Don't put me in water. Don't put me in on ice. Don't put me in in any whatever, in dirt, like anything. And then, but somehow this enters our imaginations that it's like we have to go,
Ice.
yeah,
Ouch.
or whatever, like
Yeah.
the craziest settings in the world.
On a motorcycle while it's riding. Like, that's so dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But that is going to be in that Austin Butler movie, isn't it?
Oh, that'll be a bike riders moment. Come on, get on the bike. Have you
Where
seen the
he's-
trailer for the bike
No,
riders, Becky?
I haven't, but
riding-
now I want to.
Oh, you got to see the trailer for the bike riders.
Like she's straddling him while he's straddling the bike. And then, what's her name? Comer? The
Jodie Comer from
Jodie Comer.
Okay.
Hey, watch
Eve
your mouth.
lady.
Yeah.
And she's having sex with him, and then her hair's blowing into his face, and they crash.
Oh my god.
That's going to be a big day on Mama Needs a Movie when the bike riders comes
I am
out because
so excited.
it's a movie
for
of
that.
many
Yeah.
accents. It's a
I'm
movie
very
of many
excited
thick,
for
None
this
of
app.
them
very
are
thick
good.
accents.
None of them are. They're probably as realistic as Lothan's accent would be. Like, whatever that accent is, that's the equivalent that those guys are gonna do.
So they're just doing like your kind of generic alien accent, which for me in my head is always what's his face from Game of Thrones, Jason Momoa. Like that's
Yeah.
how I picture. Like if it's like any alien romance that I read, they're just that guy. Like I can't, and I need to expand my imagination a bit, but I can't not.
Yeah, but if that does it for you, then that's the perfect voice.
Yeah, it's not that it like does. It's not like for me, fantasy wise, it just makes sense in my brain for the story of like in that kind of story is like it is kind of like, oh, here's someone who's like the exact opposite. He's like this caveman alien, even though he's like they're far evolved.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
they just always talk like Jason Momoa. Like I don't know.
Well, I
Yeah.
do think that there's like something between like Eastern European and aliens that's like it's a connection that was made a long time ago, probably because of like sci-fi coming of age in the Cold War.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
TV sci-fi coming of age in the Cold War, and that kind of either you're English or you're kind of like faintly Soviet.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like Tarzan in a way.
Yeah, that's another one. It's like, oh yeah, we just accept. And I guess Game of Thrones is kind of like vaguely Eastern Europe-y, right? The
They're not
accents?
just all British on Game of Thrones?
They are, but some of them like the more like the people from the outside the tower or the wall or whatever.
I read this Lothan's voice the whole time as like you are my queen. Come back to my castle, and
Yes.
and we show the Frelics are going to get it. Like because I think
You mean like an arcade voice?
kind of like an arcade voice because the two things that I had in my head was this book kind of reminds me of John Carter of Mars,
Okay.
which is I think because
he
it's
doesn't jump.
Frathics, because that. Well, yeah, but that whole book is like the whole villain in that is the Tharks, and so in this book they're talking a lot about Frathics and things, and I was like, okay, it's similar thing, and then also I just saw Madam Web. And in Madam Web, there's like a character who's been entirely dubbed, and he talks just like that. And it's like, Madam Web is going to get us with her powers, and so every line just kind of had that. If we don't get her before she gets us, she will use her supernatural powers to get us. We must use the Triforce to stop her, or whatever. So,
It still doesn't make any sense, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Well,
So that
like
was
when-
Lothan's
yeah.
voice for me.
Because I've listened to these books before. Like this is a very like the book we're reading, very very common trope. Like it's a very huge thing. Just the archetype, the trope, all of it. So I've listened to a lot of these books as well. Because I enjoy listening to audiobooks. And I think like what the male narrator does, they do a similar kind of voice when they're like doing the dialogue of the aliens. Like no one's ever like, like, oh, no one's like no alien sounds like Frasier. You know what I mean?
But they do sound like Niles. It's weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Niles, they do. No, yeah. Like they're always like that. Like, kind of like I thought when I read it that it reminded me a little bit of Flash Gordon, although I haven't seen Flash Gordon in 20 years, but yeah.
Yeah, but I kept thinking of Game of Thrones because there's a lot of sort of like, oh, we have multiple families who
Yes.
are trying to go after the same crown. But more than that, reminded me of Sexy Succession.
Yes.
Because you got a shitty dad who makes a will and is like, hey, by the way, I'm going to leave this so vague and confusing But you're not going to know what's going on.
Yeah, there's a manipulation there. Well, let me just read it. Okay, let me just get into it. We are reading Stella by Starlight. Just kidding, Stolen by Starlight.
Stella by Starlight.
There it is.
Yeah.
It is book 1 in the Warrior Kings of Alioth by Sara Ivy Hill, currently $4.99. You may say that Ada went from princess of the child's birthday party to queen of the impossible. Abducted from Earth by an alien species called the Frathics, Ada wants nothing more than to save every one of her fellow captives, including her sister. And when she learns she's the fated mate of King Lothan of the planet of Era, she then stands for every one of us, every man, every woman, every human who wishes their lives could be an intergalactic fairy tale, an epic romance that even the Brothers Grimm would say, that's kind of weird, but I like it.
Great description. I was like, the whole time I was like, I'm looking at these words, but I'm not pronouncing them fully. So it's good to hear those. The whole time I was like, Ada. Ada is like a name for a kid who is under 10 or 100 years old.
Yeah,
feels
right.
like a very weird young woman.
She was a very weird young woman, I will say.
She's a weird young. She's a little bit strange. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, how old do you think she's supposed to be? 28?
I just assumed 23. I always assume 23 with alien abduction. Yeah.
You finished college. You're totally ready to be abducted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like something about like the fertile uterus of, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, she's fully grown. It's really cool.
Really grown. You're not only of age, you're out of college, you know. And look, maybe you didn't have the best college experience, you know, and so this
now
is
spring
you're
break
ready.
forever
Now it's
in
time.
space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
and
adulthood.
And it's like you haven't really set down your roots as a 23-year-old yet because you just graduated. So it's like, what an easy, like, that's an easy abduction.
You think it's harder to abduct someone who owns a home?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they got to get past the gate. Talk to the HOA. I love the fact that she was she's called Ada in real life, right? On planet Earth.
Yes,
Okay.
on planet Earth, yeah.
And they call her a different name. They call her
Alara?
Alara. Okay. So
Yeah.
Ada and Alara.
But I guess Alara is means like spirit wife. It doesn't mean, it's like you are an Alara, right?
Yeah, like I thought it was like queen. Like it was like the I keep calling the planet
Queen
Iran. Yeah, like Iran. It's
This
the
is my
Iranian
queen,
term.
Ira.
Yeah, like I think it's like that's what they call. I don't know. It was very confusing. Like there really wasn't like which you know what, for me, fine. I don't care.
Yeah,
like
get back to the giant penis.
exactly. Get back to
his
the
color.
yeah.
But I love
color so much.
Love it
so much.
that she was a Disney princess on
Yes.
or whatever. Had that. I was like, that was truly my favorite detail of the book. I thought that was just a kind of a like if you saw that in a movie, a woman go, you know, her day job is being a birthday Cinderella, and then she gets kidnapped, and you'd say, oh, that's clever. Like,
And then she becomes a real. The
Yeah.
only thing about that part of it, I was like, the way that it's written, the way that it's constructed. I have an MFA.
Sure.
The way that it's constructed.
We got that
Oh,
Iowa
okay.
writers
I'll
workshop over here. Okay, let's just rub it in.
It felt a little bit like, you know, I see where you're trying to go with this. It was funny because it's like she's abducted, which even in UCB terms is probably the first unusual thing. And then it's like, oh, but also her job was a princess, and it feels like, what? We're not starting in the midst of her doing that. It was sort of like, oh, by the way, my job was this. And it's like, show me that. I would actually love to see like a scene of like, you know, I don't even know, some sort of like Earth thing where it's like, oh, well, you know, I walked around as a ditzy princess and, you know, I get catcalled, but none of these guys respected me. That makes him being like, whoa, I'm not going to rape you, a bigger deal.
Sure. I mean, I get what you're saying. So you're saying you kind of want like the prequel of this series of this is the abduction, which I get. Like, which like
Yeah. Like, why is it great? Why is like if she's just abducted and she just wants her sister, but I like the idea if it's going to be space. And again, I'm not in this genre, but like usually if it's like, oh no, I have to be in some new land. It's like, well, something wasn't great about where you came from that makes you so quickly accept. And maybe the guys are just better and more respectful in this land.
And that's what I think is like kind of makes something like this really palatable, because if it was like, well, because like there was one side character. Yeah. Well, yeah, there was that. There's always but there's like one of the abductees is a mom and a wife, and like that was the first time I ever saw a character like that in a book, because there is something very like Mama Needs a Movie level stressful of you know, abducting abducting someone with connections to Earth. So it's like, how do we make this, because first of all, I'm just gonna say it now and forever, abduction is not a good thing, like in general.
What?
Yeah,
you're anti-abduction. You can't say that these days, Becky. You're gonna get in trouble.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, with all these new laws in Texas about abduction.
It says I'm anti-abduction. But listen, you know, it's a bad thing. And so I feel like with these books, if you kind of like play the truth of what an abduction is, it's like, well, that would be miserable to read. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm scared. I don't know where to go to the bathroom. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the entire idea, is that it is part feeding fantasy of abduction and fantasy of, I mean, it's not like it's forced participation. It's which is a fantasy, and it's a legit kink that people have, a fantasy that people have. But that's so you're kind of treading that line of like, oh, this is horrible, but at the same time, like, because she gets abducted not once, she gets abducted like 6 times in this book. There's like she's constantly like, every time they're safe, it's like, oh no, and then they took me away again. Oh no, and then they picked me up, and then Lothan had to come in and take me away and pick me up like a wicker chair or whatever, you know.
Wicker, that line made me laugh so hard. I'm like, they have wicker on this planet?
Well, but yeah, it is kind of like, I think to me it seemed more like a rescue fantasy than an abduction fantasy.
Sure.
Because she's abducted initially by the bad guys, who are like, they use like kitchen cleaner to clean the women, which is
horrifying.
That like a gross image. But then they're very lightly treading on like, yeah, these women are being taken away. Ooh, like, but we don't. That's not the sexy part, which I appreciated.
No, me too. And it's like they make that part seem like, because like she, you know, when she's saved for like the first time, she's like, all of those women that I was abducted with, they're my sisters. I mean, one of them, you know, braided my hair. The other one taught me to twerk. And I'm like, this sounds fun. This sounds like camp.
It sounds great. It honestly sounds more fun than my life.
They get so excited about Lotha, and they're like, girl, get it. Like, it's very kind of like, okay, you seem oddly untraumatized by what seems like constant rape, probably, but
that's what
maybe not.
Yeah, and I think like that's what these books need, because if it was going to be like, we're fully traumatized, why would I
you watch that?
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought
didn't it make you think a little bit about that SNL sketch with the lady who gets abducted and they don't want anything to do with her?
It absolutely did.
Like, let me just poke your balls.
Yeah,
it's okay, Ryan. You don't have to like it.
Gosling, we love when Gosling hosts and cracks up.
Oh my goodness! Wait, was it your podcast I was listening to about Ryan? You were saying Ryan Gosling is like he's kind of fully evolved as a person and isn't. Was it you saying this, or was it yesterday? You were talking about Ryan Gosling on your last podcast, and like.
Really?
I think we probably were. Okay. Yeah, about how he's changed. I think on the last episode we were talking about how. I was talking about Dev Patel is Ryan Gosling more than he is Keanu Reeves. Like,
okay, got it.
His career path.
I think. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think Gosling has become. I think he's become a bit of a pep rally performer, which is a really that's like about
Ooh,
the worst
Ryan.
insult I
Ow.
can give. But
Wow.
people don't seem to think this. They seem to think that he's the most hilarious man ever put on earth. But
Are you saying he's Taylor Swift for men?
he is? He's Taylor Swift. Yeah, he's not just for men though.
No.
Suddenly, me saying abduction is bad is not that bad compared to this.
Compared to saying faintly negative things about the Ryan Gosling, an American treasure.
He's very,
even
very
though
good
he's from
actor, but
Canada?
I'm like, he's just like he did it again on SNL where he's like, I'm gonna put on the Ken sweater and stuff, and everyone screams. I'm just like, this is not entertaining to me. I'm too old for this to be, an entertaining.
I think you've
thing.
been too old since you were born.
Yeah, probably. But the thing about the abduction stuff in this is that I found the Lena thing, her sister, because she's and for most of the book, she says she's like, but my sister. She's like, I can't get. She's like, I can't get wet. My sister's missing.
Yeah, which I
And
don't love thinking about those two things in the same sentence.
But I get it. Like, talk about, because I have this kind of feeling with my own siblings sometimes when something's really bad going on bad with them or something. It's like it's hard to focus. It's hard to that's like kind of like this mama thing we're talking about, where it's like it's kind of hard to, if your kid's in trouble or something, you're not going to want to go off and do a romance or whatever. So I get that. And so what I thought was that the book was going to be, first of all, I thought her sister was way younger than she was. So
Right.
they're like, my sister. And then she says, when I was 12 and she was 10. And I'm like, your sister's 2 years younger than you? Like, this is not even that big of a spread.
She can
Like,
take care of
She
herself.
can kind of take
Yes,
care
but
of
she
herself.
had been taking care of her because they're amazing, incredible, totally present, totally fun mom, who was a single mom, by the way, who was great anyway. She died when she was 12. So it's like she's been the mom. This whole book has like a very pervasive kind of like, men are awful, all of them. Moms are great.
Mhm.
And except for Lothan, who's cool. But dads are bad guys in this story. All the dads are bad guys.
Yes. Yeah.
His dad, her dad.
Yeah.
That's all
Bad daddy. Yeah.
Well, to your point, Ryan, I think there's this thing, like, as someone who I am almost 40, I'm a younger sister, but I feel like my brother will always be like, I gotta protect Becky, even though, like, I'm an adult. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's like a thing,
Yeah.
like.
Well, how much older is your brother?
He's 2.5 years older.
Oh,
it's the
okay. So
same-
maybe that is.
Yeah.
Maybe that is. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess maybe it just gets ingrained in you as a little kid if you see a little baby. If you're a slightly older baby and you see a younger baby, maybe you're like, I have to protect that baby for the rest of my life. But
Yeah.
the age difference was, and then I also thought what I thought the book was going to be was Lena's missing. And God, I really want to fuck this alien, but I can't fuck this. I can't get into this. I can't relax until we find Lena. And I thought they were going to find Lena like halfway through the book or near the end of the book.
Same.
And then
She was
like,
gonna
finally I
give
can
in.
relax.
Yeah.
And let's do it and have fun. But like she just like fucks him like a bunch.
And it's like, oh yeah, Lena.
And every time she's like, and then I felt bad because Lena's still missing. I have no idea where she is.
I kind of loved it.
Every time I came so hard, I thought about my sister. Okay.
It's like she had the most mind-blowing, like, spiritual, like, sexual thing, and then it's like, yeah, but Lena. And it's so weird to me because I think, like, as humans, I could be wrong. Actually, I could be 100% wrong. I'm just going to speak on behalf of myself for a second. But for fun sex, we want to be in the right state of mind, I think. It's more about our brain space than, like, our body space. So when your sister's missing, you're obviously not in the right mindset to, like, be having. But for some reason in this book, it's fine, And so it's like, I had to, like, separate myself a little bit from that. Because, yeah, I guess as someone who's like, I want everything where they should be before I have fun, if a sister was missing, I'd be a nightmare.
Yeah. No, I think of it more from the perspective of, like, if my kid was missing, I was reading this book in bed and my daughter was asleep, like snoozing away, wearing a whole lot of jewelry to bed. And I was like, man, if my kid was missing, would I ever have sex again? I think maybe no. I might just be like, I can't relax because what if I think, but that's a higher level than a sister who's actually an adult also.
Right, who's probably smarter than her. Yeah, like her sister has more education than she. Like her sister is probably gonna be okay.
She's a veterinarian.
Yeah, but Lena.
She might win awards for saving animals. That's what her fantasy is like. Maybe
exactly.
Yeah, she might be a. Wait, there's a vet tech is one of the ladies, and that's who does the doctoring, is the vet tech.
And she's great at, like, I bet in her story, she's going to go off to a planet and, like, discover the cure to a disease that's been plaguing all of these alien species. And this whole time it was just like, you know, when cats get pink eye or something, you know?
Yes. It was like, it's mange. All the sexy boys have mange. Let's fix it. And then they'll be hot again. Oh no, that would be a funny idea of like a vet romance novel.
Oh, it's there. It's out. Anything you can think of, like, is out there. You know, like, and I can see it. Like, yeah, I bet you that book like actually exists. Of like, oh yeah,
she cures
like
them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, reading this, I was like, I kept being like, you know, the challenge to me, it seems like, of writing one of these books is you have to describe sex a lot of different ways because you have a bunch of sex scenes, but then you also have to kind of separate the sex somehow, and it seems like the somehow is the tricky part because it's like you can describe sex like 6 times or something. But I had a question as an expert in this. I noticed that when they have full-on penetrative sex is 50% exactly in the book, like halfway through. Is that how it works?
I think that's it. Yeah, like I think there's some books where, like, because you know how like there, you know how like in screenwriting, like whatever, there was the thing of like by page 25 of a screenplay, the inciting incident should happen. You know what I mean? I think it's the same thing. I think that's like kind of your Save the Cat style kind of outline of what makes a good romance novel. Can there be like, you know, exceptions? Yes. Have I read them? Yes. And they're great. But I think like, I don't know. I just have this feeling. I have a feeling.
Yeah. It's like when we really bone down is halfway through the book. Okay.
Yeah,
you're gonna have some encounter that's a little bit more teasy, like not yes, but not fully, and then.
But he bites her. I'm like, ugh.
They're into that in space.
Pointy little teeth.
Pointy teeth. Oh my goodness. How did you feel about this pointy? Like, how did you feel about the alien species in general? Like, just reading sex between humans and aliens. Like, were you guys freaked out?
Not really. I mean, it doesn't have it didn't have any like bestiality connotations or anything, which I thought was kind of remarkable that it didn't. I think also I've seen Avatar, which is like,
oh yeah,
has I think kind of opened a door of like, what if I got in an alien body and had sex with what is essentially a different species?
This is what came into my mind, which is unfair because he's not described this way, but with the teeth. This is what I thought of these teeth.
Just so you know, she's holding. Who's that? Quark from
a Ferengi.
A Ferengi from Star Trek.
Yeah. Next G.
But his teeth are described as being little pointy teeth, just like that.
He's like he's the guy who does all the black backdoor dealing on like Deep Space Nine, right? Like the guy's like, hey, I got these jewels from Krypton, or not? That's wrong.
Yeah, he's very coded as
a Jewish person. It's kind of like
I think so.
Harry Potter coding.
Yeah.
I like the color changing. I thought that was inspired. This kind of the kind of chameleon
turns violet when he's in love. That's very pretty.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's
but then the sex water, the sex bubble bath.
There was a lot of sex in that bubble bath. Like there was,
but the stuff that makes you feel sexy.
Yeah, like there was like
I like that
powder. Yeah, and like an aphrodisiac kind of powdery soap thing. It's like that. See, I was thinking about like because you guys like I feel like like genres of cinema very well, and so I was like thinking about like the sci-fi genre and like in these books like. Obviously, these books are like alien boning, but like I feel like do do you see like a pattern in sci-fi movies where the creators are like creating a world where like that alien world, even if it seems backwards, has all the things that they wish they would have on Earth? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's a big thing in sort of like sci-fi or in stories about kind of like I think in stories that take place in places that are unfamiliar, like a Game of Thrones kind of universe, like fantasy, that they do that. But then also I think some sci-fi really just doesn't address it at all because it's not particularly it's like a tricky thing to get into because then you can make your story look super dated all of a sudden.
True. Yeah.
You know, but I think it's not if you're kind of going with the idea of like, I'm not going to have sex with you until you say you want to, is I guess is kind of like Princess Bride in that, you know, as you wish kind of thing. It's the same sort of vibe.
Yeah.
I don't kidnap and have sex with. I kidnap. Wait a minute. You know,
what a gent.
Or like Blade Runner when he's like, no, I'm gonna throw you against the wall. Okay, now I'm not gonna touch you for a second. Now can we have sex? It's like that's not enough time.
Right.
You actually have to let her be.
The twist of our show of Mama Needs Movie shows is Anne is more into sci-fi than I am. I think as a genre. I like science fiction. I don't understand it as well.
Why is that a twist?
Because people wouldn't think the woman would like sci-fi more than the man.
The woman.
That's whatever.
I'm sorry. When the internet is talking, they are calling me a bitch. All right, don't call me a woman.
This book, because one thing I did think a lot about was Dune, and about how, because I was like kind of looking at this, I was kind of going like, I don't know if Stolen by Starlight is a good sci-fi story, you know, like I'm really kind of judging it by the harsh, you know, a real harsh critical angle. And I was like, I don't know if Dune is a good sci-fi story from the criterion that I'm using, which is like, does it really transport you to a different, like there's at least I'll say that's something that Stolen by Starlight has that Dune doesn't have, and maybe a lot of other sci-fi stuff doesn't have, which is that they have this thing of, on this planet, we are individualists. We don't gather in groups. We don't gather for school. We don't gather for church. We don't even gather for dinner, you know. And that's an interesting idea. Like I think that's something that's underexplored sometimes in sci-fi, is like, what if you were on a different planet with a different cultural structure, or we're far in the future or far in the past, and we have a different cultural structure.
That's more Star Trek-y, I think. They do a lot of that on Star Trek.
Or Twilight Zone has that. That's why sometimes you'll watch a 30-minute episode of Twilight Zone, and it's better than a big sci-fi epic, because you'll go, oh, that was interesting to explore just that little portion of that, just that question of how society could be different. And I think this book kind of does. It doesn't really address the individualist stuff enough for it to be like cause maybe they do it in Captured by Starlight or Starlight Express or whatever.
One of the other brothers' stories. Yeah. Like partway through the book, I was like, wait, is this?
Well, it's a series.
Like, what is the? Yeah, it's a series, and they're all gonna find their star princess.
I cannot wait.
Put the sex crown that makes your head hot. Oh.
Well, that's different. You know, or maybe it's real. But actually, Ryan, to your point, like what you mentioned about like society and culture and like these differences, I will say you see it a lot more in interspecies romance and erotica, because there is because you know, let's say courtship on Earth is like what we do is based on our society, based on how we were raised, you know, based on like these kind of, you know, things that we're taught, right? So when they go to a foreign planet and they're dealing with courtship, and you need plot wise, you know, to deal with like different, obstacles, well, you got to make their society different. So then, you know, you kind of see kind of different forms of society amongst aliens, amongst any sort of monster romance. Like their rules of society are different, right? And I think that's what I find so intriguing, besides the weird sex. I find it so intriguing to just see these cultures and have it be like questioned. Because like like I grew up, we always had family dinner together. That was always a rule, you know. And then it, you know, knowing someone who didn't have that, and it's like, oh, that's so weird. Like, how do you connect, you know? And it's like, oh, they connected with sparring, you know. It's so interesting to me. And the sex.
Right. Yeah. I think that's what's interesting about sci-fi in general, is that it's like you can talk about things in a less heated way, in a certain way. Like, you could make a sci-fi story that's all about gun control or school shootings or something, but because you're talking about the Thorlax and their barbed knives or something, then you can describe some of the feelings about it without it being like, whoop, this is political, I'm out.
Yeah.
And probably even in romance novel context, I would guess, is like, you can get at all sorts of things where it's like, okay, blah, 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 but I'm sort of hearing what you're saying. Now I want the sex part.
Right. Yeah. There's like a lot of like philosophical things that are brought up that obviously are very much eclipsed. But, you know, okay, here we have a world where in the reality of this world is you find your soulmate, your like Alioth or whatever it's called, you know, you feel it in your body and your bones, you smell it on them. Like, that is how you find love, versus planet Earth, where it's like you go on the apps and you do the thing, and like that's how you find your soulmate. And it's like, well, what's free will? Like, you know, like, is free will based on planet by planet? Like, I don't understand. Like, this keeps me up at night.
Well, I think that's what it seems like the pleasurable part of it is, like, if you were in a universe where it's like, oh, it's that person, and then you had complete clarity about it, that would be nice, instead of like, well, he's got some good points, but also he's got some bad points, and my friend says blah blah blah. But if you're living in a situation like this, then you would never, the only conflict seems to be that you're lying about how that's your soulmate.
Yeah. Or
to
just
get something.
Yeah. Or there's like different conflicts that like you might not think of, you know, like you meet your soulmate, but like, you know, now I just want this to be a sitcom where it's like you find out he snores at night. Jeez Louise.
Oh no. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the Heartbreak Kid premise. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you realize I don't like you. And
I actually don't like. I married you. And
I don't like you.
Yeah.
I don't actually like you. There was a thing that I think it's like a readily available thing about how, like, there's some low grade at which people can smell people that they should mate with.
Interesting.
And that you find
that's
the
real
smell.
pheromones.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
think that
but
was real.
it's like you smell. If someone smells like bad, it's because if you had babies, they would have problems. Like, that you can actually smell in a bad match. I don't know if this is
saying
true,
I need to
but I think
shower.
it's real. Or you need to shower less so he can smell what a positive match you are.
Well, I could do that
He's
easily.
like, wait a minute, I can't smell you through all of your ablutions. I need to be able to smell you.
Can I ask you this? Do you? Because I try to stay very hygienic in my life generally. I'm usually, if I'm going to go see people, I'm showered and I'm deodorized. I've noticed sometimes if I skip a day or something, just whatever, I end up like around people. I notice that there is sometimes a little bit more of a pull. Like, oh, you look a little bit more, maybe I look more rugged or whatever. Is like, is smell, when you can smell actual like stink on a man. Is it? Because I could say I've smelled stink on a woman before and been like, that's kind of something. Like, that's
Interesting.
Wait, you had this? You followed her into the Coliseum?
No, I didn't. I've never followed a woman anywhere. But like, human smell is. I'm not inventing this, right? Like, it's kind of appealing, right?
Yeah, like I feel like, and I could be wrong, but you know, I have curly hair. You're not supposed to wash your curly hair every day because, you know, it'll mess up with the natural oils of your hair, right? So when you don't shower, you don't wash your hair, even though you might not feel the most clean, your body is kind of like getting back to your balance of like your natural oils, I suppose. So maybe it's that, you know, of like, oh, are these like, is Big Soap telling us that we're unclean? No, I don't know. But like,
I mean, kind of, right?
Yeah,
Saying, like,
yeah.
I mean, I think that with like, I remember being a little kid and seeing douche commercials And thank God, I think that's mostly past. But the notion that you need, it's like the outside of your body is insufficient. Now you need to be cleaning up in there. Is like, well, do you though?
Lothan would hate it. He would hate it. He wants that. He wants that smell. Yeah.
You'd be like, I can't smell her. She's lost. I'm blind.
That would be nice though. Like I would love to have like a really good sense of smell like that.
Yeah. I know, but in dating it would be so great.
Where you can smell genetic deformity.
Yeah. You got the BRCA gene.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Or it's like, or you just like knew like, they don't like the same movies as me through smell. I'm gonna go. No, I know to watch movies with this person or something.
Yeah.
You just can like figure it out.
It would really simplify it. It really would. Yeah. There was one part in this book that really like stuck in my head because I found it so I was like, you didn't come up with a sci-fi thing for this. Is it she's like, this is before they actually have full penetrative sex, and he's like, she says, he had to strap his dick back into its like dick rubber band or whatever.
Bra. Yeah, his dick bra.
and it says there's a glistening drop of pre-cum, and I was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
What? I was like, what? That should have a special, like, magic space name.
That's in human books, too.
Yeah, but I'm like, you have a name for everything else, but you, like, pre-something.
You think pre-cum should have had
cum should have had a different title in this book, I think.
Well, everything should have had a different title.
Yeah.
I mean, conceivably. If he's describing it, he could have been
Because he's like
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, he is. He's describing things. But she's describing that, and I was like, oh, man, there should be I don't know. It just felt like a missed opportunity to come up with, like, the waves of Endor or something.
Pre-cum is is not a sexy word. Like, I think there's a hyphen in pre-cum, and so when you read it, and I'm sure this is not the only romance novel that it's in, like, anything with a hyphen is like, yes, the pre-cum.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, this is, wow, I can't wait to see a man's pre-cum. Like,
it's weird that like they have different names for God and stuff and humans on these planets, but like all around it's still clitoris, it's still dick, it's still balls. You know what I mean? And pre-cum. That's universal.
Yeah.
On the altar of Ilithor, my balls were I was erect and my balls were about to pre-cum.
Yeah, like he doesn't even get her name right, but clit, that's right.
Yeah, it's like, and you know to abbreviate it, and you know where it is. I love the description of how easy it is, too. He's just like, and then I started rubbing it, and I noticed from her face that she liked that, so I did more, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, aliens can do it. Aliens.
Oh, my God, if an alien can do it, I can't give a man to do it. Oh, God.
How do you know the conversations I have with my girlfriends daily?
Well,
I read a book where Lothan could do it. I can't even get Neil to do it.
Neil.
How do you know the conversations I have with my husband?
Well, because he didn't retract his claws is the thing. That was a good little comment. It's like, you got to trim your claws. Like, he retracts his claws, which is very polite behavior.
I agree.
And then,
and then your toenails.
Yeah. But if he's 7 feet tall, and his
we love
dick,
that. We love that she's like 5
I barely
feet
made it to
7 feet.
his nipples.
It's like, I'm a full 2 feet shorter than him.
I'm so tiny.
Yeah.
I feel like I could be assaulted at any moment. But if he's actually 7 feet tall and his dick is enormous, how does it fully fit in her body? Do we just accept this?
I just accepted it. I feel like I have read things where it's like, there's a magic balm, or maybe because like they do have sex a lot in that healing bath. You know what I mean? So I just feel like, and she sees a healer in general, and he's like doing some weird thing. So I just assumed that like maybe like the bath that they were in or the healing that she got like somehow healed everything, including her, tight vagina.
It's like a Zolly. It's like the zoom in, the pushing in, where it's like
maybe
you're zooming in and pulling.
It's exactly like a Zolly.
It's like extending it. Yes.
Yeah, it's like when like you take hormones for one thing, but then your hair's nicer. Like maybe it's like that or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like some doorway is unlocked.
I
But I
think
was
this
like,
works.
there is
like,
a dead end, right?
I think
there's a
generally-
uterus in there.
I've seen pictures of like Shaq and his wife or whatever, and I'm like, this is this is almost like Lothan and Ada. It's like like there's big guys.
I think
and
he's
small women.
taller. He's
Yeah.
more than 7 feet.
Yeah,
Right.
I should just ask Shaq.
You should ask Shaq.
And also, to be fair, I do think that, like, Ada, 23, 24, maybe has only seen so many, like, for his big dick could be, that could be just like a normal size dick for another woman. You know what I mean? Like, it's all relative. It's all really relative, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. They might be, he might actually have a really small dick. She doesn't know.
Yeah, she doesn't know. And she's like, I like it. Like, I like the way it is. And maybe, we all know that Shaq is like, his dick is 2 feet longer.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like
see, that's the thing is like you need to, you have your own perfect match. It doesn't, there's no right or wrong.
That's the other thing when you're in such a foreign, this book kind of reminded me of like, stories of like when women are like, I went to Spain and met Pablo and he was so wonderful or whatever, and then I met his brothers and they all think he's a shithead or whatever. Like, you don't know if you're getting the good one. You're just getting the you're just excited to be in Spain. She's excited to be on this planet or whatever. But like, this guy might be a fucking loser for all you know. And
you got to read the other books. You got to read the other books to find out if is he really the coolest one just because
I think
he's
it kind
the
of
oldest.
capture that well. Like,
Yeah.
thing, like, are you cool? I don't know.
But I think he's Kendall Roy. I think he's the oldest boy and he thinks he gets the kingdom.
I just like love the idea of like he's off like fighting like some alien war and she's like going to everyone like, is he cool or like? Do you think is he like cool?
I mean, he picked out my clothes, which is nice. But is that cool or pathetic?
Like, brushed my hair. Like, that was weird. He's really
He showed
insistent
me
on
his
that.
dad's bed and he wants me to sleep in it.
Yeah. It's weird.
Oh,
It's
no.
weird.
That bed sounded real 70s too.
Oh, yeah. There's a
like,
harem bed
sunken
or
bed.
whatever. Yeah.
But he didn't want to. He was not gonna. I like the line early on where he says, "I'm not going to fuck away my feelings like my father did." Not in a harem. He did not want to. He wasn't down with that harem stuff that his bad dad was involved with.
Bad dad. There was a lot of like thematically like I don't want to be like my parents in this book. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to be like the person who raised me or the world that raised me in this book. It was a lot of
Or dad, specifically.
Well,
dad.
dads, yeah. It's like I don't want to be like my dad. Yeah.
my dad who left us in a trailer park or alone on a planet cursed.
Yeah.
Those are both bad.
Yeah.
Everybody's got bad parents, and they're
Or dead parents. You know what? The only good parent is a dead parent, I think, in terms of storytelling. A dead parent is the best parent you could get because then you get to be like, oh, weren't they amazing? If only they could see me now in space.
How else can we feel sympathetic for someone? They have to lose the most important thing in their life. Yeah.
It's Bambi styles.
Bambi storytelling.
If that mom had been around, like waiting for her kid to come back to Idaho.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get back to Idaho and see my mom. And
Then
go to
she would just
Walmart.
be a mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, she's giving me like the weird green pancake things, and I don't like this food. I want to go to McDonald's. And you're like, ugh, please just be dead again. This is bad.
Yeah. Yeah, having to deal with the in-laws. There's a good that movie. Did you see that movie Passages?
Is that
There's a
Jennifer
a-
Lawrence wakes up and no,
Oh,
Passengers.
that's Passengers.
Oh,
That's
then I
kind
didn't
of
see
like
that.
a little. That's a
Okay.
space romance. Yeah,
Yeah.
There was this movie last year called Passages, which is about like a kind of arrogant director who like starts dating somebody on his set, and it's kind of like it's an interesting movie because like the whole movie's in the world of like kind of this sophisticated filmmaking, and then she's like, meet my parents, and then there's just a scene where it's like you see this guy like having a dinner with normal French parents,
And he wears a cutoff. He wears a
Yeah.
cutoff shirt to this dinner, and they're like, "Are you Sure.
And you're like, oh God, this is the worst. When it's like with the sophisticated guy from the city has to pretend to be polite for 2 hours or whatever. It's just
This is what it would be like for Lothan. He would really not like.
Lothan would be like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be. Does this go in the other direction with the space stuff, where the aliens come and they're on Earth, or is it always in space?
I've read one, like the one I read with Nina. That one took place on Earth. So it's like there's some aliens that come to Earth. There's the ones that like I think the writer that like kind of that I like that I read like in my off time is they were all kidnapped or abducted, taken to a different planet, and all of them have no familial connections to Earth for whatever reason, like they were taken up from their place, but it's fine because they don't have a lot of friends, they have no family, so it's like easy abduction. Yeah, they hate Earth anyway, it's all like
it's fine. I hope it explodes. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are there other things like this? I mean, what struck me was because I was like, okay, what's appealing about this genre other than like the kind of the get out of your head fantasy
pre-cum
space.
Ryan?
But the idea is the indestructible man or whatever, a superhuman sex person. Which is that represented by other, like I assume there's fantasy, there must be like werewolf stories or I guess vampire stories are kind of like it, like wasn't that kind of one of the things of Anne Rice's, like I've been around so many years, I'm like the most sexually proficient kind of so it's the idea of like partially of like, wow, this guy's an alien and his dick is bigger than any human I've ever met. Like you can create your own sense of like a sexual super being. If
absolutely.
You're on a fantasy.
Yeah, I think there could be a lot of reasons. Like I think like bringing up vampires. Like I think with vampires, like yes, there's like, oh, I've been around and I have like a lot of sexual experience, but there's also the idea of like this guy could kill me at any second, but he absolutely can't because he loves me so much, and I think that is appealing. I think that like, oh, with monsters or aliens or things like that, like it is like, oh, these people could kill me, but no, they are just absolutely obsessed with me and they're in love with me. That's appealing. There's also the fact that they were raised in different societies. They just like, for me, I'm just like, when I read these books and they're just like, well, like, what do you mean on your planet the men are in charge? That's not right. And you're kind of like, I'm in love with this man, like I just think that like I like them because they're all kind of like, they're really goofy and like they like you think that they're gonna be like this like kind of Neanderthal kind of caveman thing, but then they're like really like progressive and they're good listeners.
There are actually more like Ira Glass or something.
Exactly.
Giant rock hard dick.
Yeah, and it's like, like they like, for better or worse, like he did have like a terrible relationship with his dad, but like he loved his brothers in their weird planet where you're not supposed to like hang out with your sibling, or you know what I mean? Like it's just like he still had like a heart,
Oh yeah. There's a very early scene where he's like, I like to go down to the pits and fight, but I don't keep the money. I give it to the poor. And
I give it to the poor, yes.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, you're the perfect guy. You're the perfect
alien.
Well,
he adopts a child. He adopts a child.
Yeah.
A
that he
poor,
doesn't kill.
traumatized child. He actually, there's one line in there where he's talking about trauma, that the child experienced trauma. And I was like, again, I feel like there should be a space word for this.
Yes, there should be a space word for space trauma. Yeah.
You have to say something other than trauma. But very astute, yes. Being sold into a gladiator world and stabbed, that is definitely yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure. You're right.
And then I also think like when I first heard of like these monster romances, there is a curiosity of like, well, what is the sex like? Like, and I don't know if it's like that. It's not me saying that I'm like into bestiality. Like, of course I'm not, but there's like a taboo element to it of like, oh, sex without a human. That's not obviously like that's frowned upon on Earth, but like, oh, sex with something that like is that you've never heard of, that's like, different, that's make believe, like you have that curiosity, like the second I see of a new monster romance thing, I'm like, I gotta read this. Like I realized there was a spider alien romance that I recently finished.
Oh.
And I realized I didn't like it because I don't like it because I don't like spiders, but I had to read it or listen to it because I'm like, there was just this morbid curiosity in my brain of like, well, what's that like? And then I realized, oh, yeah, I don't like this. I'm going to read the next.
Was this a
next
woman with a
Was it
spider
like sex?
creature? Or
This was a man who was a
Was it
spider
sex?
creature.
okay.
And he had 8 legs. He has 6 like spidery legs, and then the top part of him is 2 arms. So like 2 like human arms. And he has 8 eyes, and like he has like mandibles, you know. And basically like this woman crash lands on this planet, different kind of thing, but like she's been like in cryo sleep for like, you know, centuries or whatever. And like so like he has everything to make her feel good, and with the added bonus of she enjoys being tied up and they have a web. You know what I mean? So it's like everything, all of her dreams come true.
Oh wow.
But they described him, the guy is like, he like chittered over here, and I'm like, oh god, I hate that when it's in my apartment. Why would I like that in my fantasy? How does this end?
Oh my god, where do you think that? I mean, that my only brain goes to like, how does one get to a point of wanting bug sex fantasies?
It's out there. Like I think it's just I think it's like there's a curiosity, you know, and
maybe
like
that tingly like maybe it's like a fear, like the way people are scared of spiders and the way that people are into kind of like bondage and stuff. I could see like that confusion in your brain of like scary and
there's a cross section I think between being scared and being turned on that like I think people enjoy maybe looking into. You know what I mean? Like just like in this orc romance that I read, you know, the woman was very, very much turned on by being scared. So the orc had to scare her, you know, and they obviously do it in a very consensual way, you know.
Right.
But it
like
and
just
not
jumping out from behind the door and saying boo.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. Obviously, it's not something you should do in this world in reality. It works when it's this, but it's just like, you know, you're kind of, I think the appeal of it is that you're kind of reading something that like that would be so insanely taboo and inappropriate in if it were to happen in real life. But it's okay because it's a book and it's consensual and, you know, yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, you don't want to read a freaking book about a married couple having missionary sex. It's not, you know, the
There are a
I mean,
lot
I
of
do.
those books.
I would like to
those
read
are
that.
just regular. Those are regular novels.
Just like they're just like talking about, oh, you're gonna take the kids to school. Okay, great. Yeah. Did you do the dishes? The end.
Yes. I
So
mounted
you want to
him.
have the worst sex.
He penetrated me. He impregnated me, and we had several children. The end.
Yeah. I don't really remember much, and then
It was
great.
fine.
It's
It
fine.
was adequate.
I'm happy. Listen, I have a place to sleep.
Yeah.
Something in this book, I do appreciate the her ability, because there were moments where, not that it's a it's not particularly a complicated story, but it's great to have a main character who's kind of got that funny quality, and so everything could kind of be recapped with just like, I'm on a planet with a guy who's got, correctamundo, Captain Obvious, and this guy doesn't even da-da-da-da. Like she can kind of wisecrack, but it serves two functions, which is to like, it's funny. I mean, it's just more funny in quotes, and it's but it also like recaps the. I understand, like watching it, I was like, oh, I get this is why they do this in like Guardians of the Galaxy or something. Is you have a guy going like, wait a minute, so you're telling me we're on a planet and we don't get the orc with the thing back we don't get the crystals back to the thing we're gonna do. That seems that's a little bit awkward, It's that.
You know what? She's being Ryan Reynolds-y.
She is Ryan Reynolds. She's like a Ryan Reynolds-y. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like it because it also kind of like gives you a sense of like what's going on in her head too. Because I think she does a lot of it of like, oh my god, I have to save my sister. Why am I staring at his dick? Ugh. Like, like, and it's like, okay, that's the premise of the story. Like, cool. And it's also like,
Do you find that a relatable idea? that you will, if you're attracted to someone, that you will just stare at parts of their body? Is that a real thing?
Not for me. I think it depends on the person, obviously, you know.
There's some people you'll just stare really hard at.
Well, yeah, if it's like, you know, I don't know, like a Chris Hemsworth walking by, how can you not look at a Chris Hemsworth?
Like
they're
boing, boing, boing.
yeah, that's what happens. Like hearts pouring out of my eyes. And I'm like, no.
So the mask happens to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just tongue.
I used to always
out.
think that like that thing of like I'm looking at them and then they look at me and then I look away, or I look at them and they've been looking at me and then they look away, or something was like really interesting. Like that was like, ooh, that was a sign that something was happening or something. But then I realized like, oh, it's just very possible that I could just be staring at somebody and they're looking at me and like, and they're just uncomfortable. Like that's also a possibility.
No, but it's also possible that they do like you. I think I just find that for me, I end up staring when I'm not like just bored or something. and I'm like, oh, this looks sort of like I'm just staring at this one dad's crotch, but it's just because his pants have holes in them. And now I look like a full-on romance novel person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think there's like places where your eyes go that like it's comfortable for my eyes to rest here, and then like you realize like, oh my god, it looks like I'm like this happened. I was like so exhausted. I was like this was a few years ago. I was traveling and like I, you know, get off the plane and I get on like the shuttle, you know, and I'm like exhausted and whatever, and I just like was just sitting there and just letting my eyes just like be or whatever, and this woman thought I was like staring at her, you know, and I was like, and she like was like, what? And I was like, oh, sorry, yeah, and I just like literally was just falling asleep with my eyes open almost, you know.
Yeah.
Wow. And she called you out on it?
Yeah, I mean, she was like young. I mean, I was in a college town and they're younger and more, you know, they know things, you know, college kids and boundaries and how to behave, you know. I don't know. I just assumed everyone's cooler than me and more well aware of the world around them.
Oh my god, that's why I couldn't do college or high school now, even, because like I used to just stare, just pure boredom. You're just in a class and you're like, well, I guess I'll just find someone who's attractive like in my field of vision and just look at them for 2 hours, because that's like all I really can do. I'm so bored.
Yeah.
Is like. Now that you can't do that now. You can't do that now.
Well, not if you're the professor, Ryan, because that's what role
exactly. As
you'd
a
be in.
professor, they won't let you.
Just sit there and stare at one of your students.
I think the world around us just needs to be more interesting, personally, you know?
Well, I think we need to go to another planet where the rules are different and we can reassess, because she's able to reevaluate some of the things that she wants, and so is he, because they're coming from I think this is also, this alien romance thing is sort of an endorsement of, you know, date someone from another country, because you're going to have maybe an interesting friction about like, oh, it's for us to decide what we agree on, where if you're both from Indiana, you might not do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And like I said, like
that's the message? Or is it
building bridges?
His bullshit is not, it might be bullshit, but it's not the same thing you're used. It's not disappointing in the same ways you've been disappointed.
Right.
Like it'll be something else where you go like, this guy's too macho, you know, or whatever, or, you know, not, or instead of whatever, if you've had, so yeah, like it's same, different stuff. Sometimes different problems are great. You know.
Yeah. It's always like whatever you think you need to solve your problems, it's always the thing that causes the most problems, but then it's ultimately the thing that fixes your problems in a way. If that makes any sense at all. That made no sense. I lied. Oh, okay.
No,
right, like the things that are challenges for you become like you can actually resolve them with the right person, maybe.
Yeah, because like I think in the end, you know, she's like, oh, I'm this nobody, I have to save, you know, whatever. And although this does, I think like the last half of, like the last quarter of the book is there's so much going on. You're like, what? Did they end up together or not? Like it was just like blowing by. But like when I was like kind of looking at it yesterday, like she does do this thing where like she thinks she's like this powerless children's birthday party princess. But then in the end, when she's like the queen, she does do like diplomatic shit, you know, with like the spider planet and negotiating the thing. Like she ends up like, it was like really empowering. And I feel like, you know, if I had my druthers, like I think the author could like play it in that world a little more of like, oh, she's actually like a really good politician.
Yeah.
Yeah. She does
She's
it.
a real Madeleine Albright.
Exactly.
She is. Well, maybe that's where it goes. Maybe she becomes like a real diplomat. That section of the book, I do have to say, I might have just been wanting more pornographic, you know, sections, but I was like, this is a lot of diplomacy, intrigue, the battle between the brothers, the battle between, there's a couple, I feel like there's multiple races of people they got to try to get from one, just to get like from the pod to over here, there's a negotiation and everything. And it's a long stretch. It's like 100
Well, they
pages.
don't even get her. They don't even get the sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't
They're
find
like,
her.
we're going to get her, though. Dun, dun, dun. But that's why I said it's like Succession, because it's a lot of like people talking in rooms and fighting about power.
Yeah, I will say like there is that, like it was like first season of Succession or like the first episode of Game of Thrones or something, you know, like there is so much like world building and like the stuff that we've talked about within this past hour, we barely scratched the surface of the society of like space. You know what I mean? Like there's so many other things like going on. Like he has his like thing with his brother, you know, who's like the space priest who wants to be whatever. But I think his romance is going to be with the sister, it seems like. That's kind of what they set it up. Like he's going to go find Lena and like he'll be the one who falls in love with her.
Oh,
maybe.
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
that's
know.
why she's not a child, yes. So that she can be one of, because they are definitely going to rule this planet together.
Oh,
or a
100%.
different planet, because they each have their own planet, except for the two that don't, so they have to be priests.
Wait, are you talking about the brother that saves? Is it Lilo? Or,
yeah, like
Lilo and Stitch?
Lilo who saved Stitch.
Yes.
Yes. Then they go surfing. That planet?
Yeah, Leela from Futurama. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Closer to Futurama than it is Lilo and Stitch. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they're gonna find Lena.
Yeah.
We all know they're gonna find Lena. She's not gonna be
course.
dead. They're gonna find Lena.
She's going to be sexy. That was one thing in the very beginning of the book where it's like, you know, I was always referred to as sort of sturdy, but I've lost 10 pounds since I've been in captivity. And I was like, are you kidding me with this? This is not a weight loss technique.
No. That's why like those things brush over me, because I'm just like, hey ladies, you want to lose weight? Get abducted by aliens. Like, you know, like it's just so stupid. I love it.
I mean, I feel like that has been proposed as like you get kidnapped and then we just don't let you eat anything for a while. Like a celebrity workout plan before the Oscars is just like, we'll kidnap you, take you to a basement, you can watch all the TV you want, and we won't feed you.
Yeah, and it's so much easier than Ozempic.
Oh my God.
I have a little theory. I have an Ozempic
Oh, and Pete
theory.
Davidson is there to keep you company.
Pete Davidson. You want to play video games? I have a theory that Ozempic might. It's kind of like apparently it's like bad for you, but like I kind of have this
Not
theory.
if you're diabetic. It's good for you
not if you're like legit. If you're legit
Yeah.
obese, overweight, or whatever, and you take it. But like if you're, for a lot of people, the reaction's not good. But it does seem like maybe the first of what are to be a slew of weight loss drugs. Like I have a feeling weight is now because it's going to be. Weight loss is going to be accessible to most people. It's going to stop being a criterion for beauty to some degree. There'll be a thing of just like, well, anybody can do Ozempic. It's now we're now doing a new thing. It's now about how tall you are or whatever, or how
Oh shit.
You
well,
mean it's still how tall you are?
maybe shorter will be better. Who knows?
Oh,
like it'll
shit.
it'll be some.
I gotta stay short.
What if I grow?
Oh no! Well, you know, people are saying because of Timothée Chalamet and Barry Keoghan, we like short guys now. So this
Baby
is
short guys,
the time to be not tall, I guess.
Yeah, but I think this is such an interesting point, because like, you know, we need society needs some sort of rule to make people feel bad about themselves, you know, like what's next? Like, okay, weight we've taken care of, like, is it hair color? Is it whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, you need some.
Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially to sell something. Like you've
Yeah.
been,
Well,
we've,
let's
we've been
just
able
go
to
back
sell.
to the classic. Just go back to race. Make it all about race.
That's a good idea, honestly.
Make America great again.
Just make you feel bad because of your skin color. That works. Sell
Sell
you
some
products
makeup that
for
way.
that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Or
Okay.
feel bad that your skin can't change color to show your emotions. That would be cool.
Man,
Yeah,
I would be
I would
so
be-
dead if this was reality. I would just be like unable to control my emotions, my skin changing color every 2 seconds. Like,
I feel
You'd
like
have to
everyone.
wear one of those. What's that thing where you cover? It's like a full body, stretchy outfit.
like- bodysuit.
No, it covers your
Shapewear?
head too. Anyway, yes, you'd have to do that. You'd have to cover your whole head.
I'd have to wear a gimp outfit.
Yeah, which would not be the thing people noticed about you.
Yeah.
Of course.
Like that guy must be real angry. I feel like, it's so funny because it's like I feel like everyone could like read my emotions. Like I feel like I don't know, when I'm stressed I show it very easily, and like I think it's like I wouldn't need it, but like would you guys like need like some sort of like, would you rather show your emotions through your words like humans do, or do you want your skin to show it?
Words or skin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd rather words than just getting blotchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would do terribly if people could tell that I'm more nervous than I am or more whatever. I think it would only affect my life terribly to have my emotions more shown than they are. But I'm also very conservative with that. Like I try to keep my emotions like
Cloaked.
close to the vest.
Yeah, but you know
yeah.
what? It would be convenient if you turned bright purple around a lady and then she's like, oh, I had no idea.
Well, that's part of the
yeah.
fantasy is it's just like, yeah, we connect. I mean, it's like what you guys were talking about earlier. It's like arranged marriage. It's like, okay, great, we're together.
I did not say arranged marriage.
I mean, but
Or
just
soulmates, like you're
just
fated.
stuff like that where
Yes.
it's just like fate
Yes.
pushing you
Yeah.
into a corner and just being like,
Yeah.
this is it. It's been made. Forget it. It's been decided for you, and you're like, okay, and then. You either live with that or you don't, or something comes along and shakes that up and you're like, oh, that's the real thing or whatever, but sometimes like all this, like it's paralyzation of choice. It's like if you get on an app and there's 900 guys on there and you don't know who any of these guys are and you're trying to figure out what works for me and what could work long term and da-da-da-da. That's like, and how is a human being supposed to process that?
Yeah.
Someone said,
Well-
this is your husband. You'd be like, okay.
Yeah. Like that's just the rules of this world. Like they could be missing something like gravity or something that we have to follow, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's really interesting, like thinking about like the idea of like authenticity and like if your skin is like showing color and you these like biological changes happen when you're in love, when you're angry, whatever, it's probably very hard to lie on this planet. So like it's very hard to be inauthentic if like you just can't help but physically be authentic. And so I'm like curious as to like, do the people on this planet like have more open conversations? Like, is therapy a thing? Like how are relationships different, with this ability,
Yeah, well, when it's expanded into an HBO show.
I cannot wait.
I mean, it sounds like there are a lot of books because there are a lot of brothers. And that idea
I hope
that,
there's like other brothers they didn't know about that get their own book.
I mean,
yeah.
the dad was a liar. Who knows how many secret families he had in Florida?
No. Florida. Probably a lot.
Honestly, they could travel around in space. It'd be so easy to have a secret family if you were a space traveler because it wouldn't be like, oh, I hope they never, end up going to college together. It's like, no, they're on another planet. They're never going to find each other.
It's really easy to cheat with intergalactic space travel.
Are you saying Buzz Aldrin has
Moon Kids?
a secret family on the moon?
Yeah. Yeah, Marvin the Martian is actually his son.
Mommy, when's Daddy coming home?
Never. He's never coming.
My Daddy lives up there, and the kids are like, oh yeah,
In
sure.
heaven? In heaven? No, not in heaven. Not in
On
heaven.
Earth. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get your guys' final ratings. And I will say we do it like similar to your show where, you just take something, you rate it 1 out of 5, whatever's. I was thinking sharp teeth because like sharp teeth, I think is like in the book, they like, again and again, they're like, oh, May, like her teeth were so sharp or whatever, like in their religion on this planet. So I was thinking like rate it based on like how, like 1 out of 5 sharp teeth. So like 1 out of 5 sharp teeth means you hated it. 5 out of 5 means you loved it. And if you guys have any final thoughts, I would love to hear them.
Okay, so 5 out of 5 is the best.
Yeah.
One
Five out
tooth
of
is
5,
bad.
yeah.
5 teeth
We're having
is
to
good.
recalibrate because we do 4. We do out of 4.
Oh,
No
you
one
do
does out of
4.
4 anymore. And
Oh.
so now
Nobody
yeah.
does it out of 4, and then I think they think
Yeah.
they're giving it a good, bad, something rating. You don't
Yeah,
have
so
to do
5.
that.
Yeah.
5. We
We
should
can-
really switch
yeah.
to 5. 5's the letterbox one. Everyone is on a 5-star system.
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
and we're on a
sometimes
4.
like for Hanukkah books, I'll do 8, because of 8. Like I'll mix
Oh,
up the
yeah.
numbers depending. So if we wanted to, we could say 7 or 5. Or well, there's 5 planets though. That's the thing. That's
We
why
should do 5.
We should do 5.
we should
Yeah,
do
yeah,
5,
yeah.
yeah.
What
Yeah.
about Ramadan sex books? Because then it'd be like 30.
Sure.
Good luck with
Like a
that.
whole-
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I'm
Well,
sure that's a genre though.
Oh
Sure it
yeah,
is.
it's a genre, but I think you would need just mathematically. Don't you need to like round down to the lowest common denominator for your star rating, for the ratings?
Right. I mean, just in terms of like the equivalent of Hanukkah with 8, it's like more days.
Right.
So
Fair.
you would have
Yes.
More.
I see.
Anyway.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm learning a lot from elementary school.
Good job, Anne. The one with the MFA and
Okay, so in terms of, yes. I don't have glasses on, but I should put them on and then tilt them down to judge this. You know what? I found it the emphasis, I thought, since it's been very, very long time since I read a romance novel, the emphasis placed on female pleasure is nice. I read just the very beginning of 50 Shades of Grey, and I was like, this is intolerably stupid and female dominating, which is all not my favorite. And I think I appreciated kind of like the joke of like he can figure out how to please a woman basically immediately.
yeah, intergalactically.
Yeah, he's just like, he's not dumb. He can figure it out. I found all the intrigue stuff in sort of the second half of the book. I was like, oh, geez. Like the first half of the book was more successful to me than the second half of the book. It was sort of like, there's only so many ways I can say sex, so here's some intrigue. So I guess for a guy with, he had a strap on, I guess you could say.
Yeah, strapped down.
But it,
You
Yeah.
strapped
yeah,
down,
it was like
yeah.
it was like a strap onto his leg, but it was his penis. Yeah, I thought it was pretty sexy. I didn't really like the teeth biting stuff.
Yeah, it's not your thing. That's okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I would give it three teeths.
3 teeths. That's a good
Yeah,
rating.
I was entertained. I was like, oh yeah, I think one element of it that I didn't really talk about is having low stakes material to consume is something that I really enjoy. Sometimes when I'm like, oh, the world's should I have brought a child into this world, blah blah, blah. And it's like
Right.
this doesn't. It's like, oh, I could see how romance novels would be a place for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this is the most high stakes story or the most low stakes story and the most high stakes environment. But yeah, I think that's like just stories like these are just like easy, escapism from your everyday
Yeah. I get that part of it in a greater sense than just the sex way. In a kind
yeah.
of like, okay, how pleasured is she gonna be is the main problem.
And not enough.
Never enough.
I think I mostly agree with with your assessment of it. I think that this is a little bit. I kind of only just have it to compare to the other one that that I read for this show. This one's a little bit like a new breed of like my clit buzzed kind of thing where I'm like, oh, okay, right. This is like a new, which is fine. That's how the people talk or whatever. And it's also, I think maybe honestly, honestly, my issue with this is the same. It's like my review of Dune, basically, which is like succession stuff and palace intrigue stuff, and I'm like, give me those meaty sci-fi premises. I want that Thraxella meat. I want that that like really mind bending kind of stuff. And I feel like this is basically like we're on a planet, and it's basically, it could take place in an Egyptian kingdom thousands of years ago. It could take place, if we change a few details, it could take place on Earth. So I kind of feel like how, in a certain way, how well does it explore like the idea of being how well does it take advantage of the sci-fi elements? And from that perspective, especially once it gets to that back half of the book, like you're talking about, I was like, this is kind of dull, save some scenes. I think the one thing I'll say is Ada is like I actually really love that character. I love the princess part of it. I like all her corny pop culture references and everything. I was like, I get this. I kind of like this woman. Like, she's just like a regular woman who's got her funny references and everything. And so I really like that character. I think Lothan's kind of a dud, much like I thought the guy in the other book was a dud.
Yeah.
But like she's got the humor and everything, and she's got the and I honestly, I cried at the dead mom stuff. I do tend to cry at that kind of stuff. And so like I'll give this, I'm going to give it like a 2.5. I'm going to give it a 2.5.
2.5? You cried. You have to give it at least 3.
I just thought it was getting dull at the end. I just at a certain point I was racing to just get to like, okay, what's going to happen to Lena or whatever. And I also don't like things that leave on such a cliffhanger. I'm like, give me something to go out on here. It's like, I understand you want to make a series, but like these things have to stand up on the strength of their own ending or whatever. And I didn't really think that this one did. It was too eager to get you to sign up for the next,
you take more pleasure and move through it a little bit more. Don't
just come to an ending, which is not even a romance novel thing. That's sometimes in spy novels or whatever, where it's like, and then cliffhanger, and then now, okay, I understand you want me to buy another book, but you're cheating by essentially ending on a cliffhanger.
What are you saying? Like misery logic, where she's like, what does she say? It's like it's a cheat that Misery dies.
Oh well, he
comes
said
back to life.
Yeah, she says he didn't get out of the cockadoodie car, or she says she didn't get out of the car or something when she was going to racing towards the cliff or whatever. I mean, she's talking about specifically a cheat of like, you killed her and then brought her back to life.
Right. Yeah.
But
but that's sort of the opposite. The flip of that is like making it concrete and then being like, never mind. He was fine.
Yeah, I just didn't like. The thing I'm comparing it to is Dune, where I watched like the first movie and I'm like, this is not a good ending for a movie, sir. Like, it's not like end your movie correctly and then maybe I'll want to go see the second movie. And I understand it's
Becky,
half the book, but
Ryan is mad about Dune.
You didn't find the right half.
But I actually think you make a good point. Like, I feel like this book was like way too much exposition on the world, and then it also at the same time had to be an abduction story, which needs exposition, an intergalactic story, which needs exposition. And it's like, I think you could have paced it better. Like, we didn't need to know about the brothers until the next book, or you know what I mean? Or, maybe we don't need to know about the succession thing. Like, just like, I feel like it could have been paced better. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it was like it felt like it was correctly spread out about the first half of the book, and then it was like a big ball of information, and not enough boning in the second half of the book.
Agreed. Yeah.
There is one line. I just want to point out one line.
Of course.
This is completely unintentional, but on 297, or I think it's 297 of the Kindle version I read.
Yeah.
She says his words come in pants. Meaning that his words come in between panting breaths. Just read as he comes in his pants.
Now that is smart. Now the double meaning.
That's
Yeah.
intentional. Perhaps intentional.
I don't
Interesting.
know,
Okay,
but I love
don't
it.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
Look
don't
at Sara
know,
Ivy
because
Hill
is
on the
that
line.
sexy?
Oh boy, he's so into me. He comes right in his pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did you know something I didn't mention, which I found sort of endearing, is that it has a trigger warning at the beginning of
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of books have been doing that lately because I think it's just this world, these readers, like, they know what they want, and if it's like, oh, there's a trope, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
No one likes to be caught off guard, I guess, with
Yeah.
like these kinds of books when you are reading it as a form of escapism. So it's like, yeah. Ryan, I thought you were going to say the line you were going to say, because this is what made me laugh. For the first time since my abduction from Earth, I can finally relax. I loved that line. That was my
She
favorite.
is like a little like Cathy in space. She's a little like.
Oh,
Yes.
she
like,
totally is.
She's like.
Who's
He-
feeding my cat?
He doesn't understand he's just trying to read my hand gestures like a caveman. That's like every date I've ever had on Earth. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was, and I loved it. I loved that. Like that's the
Yeah.
only time when I'll appreciate that kind of thing is like when they're abducted in space.
Oh yeah, I that it was
Tough
almost
crowd, tough crowd. Everyone's abducted.
to me
Yeah.
it's almost. I mean, I would almost up my rating if it was a little bit funnier because it is almost like a comedy of just like a woman, just this woman gets like taken the most normie woman gets taken
Yeah.
to space is like
Yeah.
another title, an alternate title for this book, Normie in Space.
Absolutely. Like I mean, I think if we could do Crocodile Dundee as a movie, we can definitely do Cathy in space.
Cathy in space is like sold in the room.
Yeah.
Definitely sold in the room.
I think
Unquestionably.
we got something, you guys.
You know Cathy? You know space? Is that my one that I saved was eyes on the prize, space slut. She says to herself.
Because you
Yes,
asked for
yes,
space slut.
Eyes on the
she's
prize,
she's
space
calling
slut.
calling herself
Yeah.
Space Slut and invoking the civil rights movement, which is great.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what she's referencing.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I appreciate it because you specifically like are there books about space sluts, and I got very excited when she called herself a space slut.
Well, that's
in
why
this.
I highlighted that one because
Yeah.
I was like, finally
Oh,
nailed
space-
it.
Yeah. Well, you guys, this was so much fun.
Oh, wait,
having
do you
you on.
rate?
Oh, my rating. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I give it. Okay, so I'm giving it 4 out of 5 because upon like rereading it again, like I realized like I was like, there's a lot of good ideas in this book. The ideas are there. I just think pacing wise, I think the way that they're organized, like it was so front loaded, for this series in itself. So I'm like curious about like, oh, will the next book kind of take its breath a bit more? Would I enjoy the second book? I do want to see what happens to the priest brother. Maybe I'll just like skip to that book. I don't know. But I do think like it got the job done. It was so goofy. It was so silly. And I'm going to give it 4 out of 5.
Wow.
Space teeth.
Wow.
Sharp space teeth.
Sharp teeth. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think also we are at a disadvantage of not being deep in the genre to know,
I'm kind of like, I grade on, like, did this book do its job, And
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, you know what? It really did, And I feel like I had to, like, realize that when I was, like, kind of just skimming back through it, Like, to be like, oh, yeah, like, the things are there. Like, there are things. It does do the things that I want us, interspecies erotica, to do, which is make me think about the state of the earth. And it did. It made me think, And I just want... I want my space books with sex in them to give me like existential questioning and to keep me up at night, and it 100% did that.
Wow, so thought-provoking material.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
just
Yes.
I need something to keep me up at night, and I don't want to think about real things, so I'll think about fake space things.
No, but that's great. That's great because then you think about the fake problems and then they seem solvable.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
It's like what would I do if like where soulmates were from like an space station from above, and that's God, and it's like, well, what if God, and then I don't think about the real problems like climate change and shit like that,
Yeah, you're thinking
Yeah.
about what if I go to a different planet and don't like the food? What if
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, this has been delightful. Please tell us where we can find your podcast, where we can find you, anything you want to plug.
Yeah, so our podcast is called Mama Needs a Movie, where we talk about movies and kind of like terms of subjective criticism of movies, because parenthood changed my experience of watching movies, and I think too much film criticism is sort of like it's good, it's not good in this kind of like clinical way, as opposed to talking about it like a person.
Yeah.
So we have another podcast, which is a Patreon, called Attention Must Be Paid, where we talk about little known, little seen movies that are awesome. And we just talked about the King, which is a Gael Garcia Bernal movie that has a bunch of very inappropriate sex in it, if anyone wants to check that out. And that's Attention Must Be Paid on Patreon. And then we have our Instagram account is Mama Needs a Movie Pod. And then we have X, what's Mama Pod on X?
Yeah, that's Mama Pod on X, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And then Ryan is a professional writer if you want to hire him. I am I have an MFA if you want me to criticize anything.
I have an MFA if you want me to criticize anything. I love that.
Yep. I don't know. I sell houses also if you want to buy a house. I can make cake. I don't know. The list goes on and on.
You're just like a jack of all trades, and yeah.
Yep.
Well, this is the thing. This was so fun. This is exactly the conversation like I needed after reading a book like this. And this was just so much fun for me. So thank you guys so much for being guests.
Thank you so much, Becky, for having us on. It's a pleasure. That we love this show, and it's we hope you'll come back to Mama Needs a Movie.
Oh my God, I would love to, because I'm a fan of your show. It is just like it's one of those things where it's like I feel like, oh yeah, I hung out with Anne and Ryan the other day, and then it was no, I've just been listening to their podcast. So it is very enjoyable.
That's what we're going for. That's what we're going.
Making
just
me
to
nuts.
Avoid
Yeah.
actually hanging out with friends ever.
Love it. I love it.
It's a way to get people to. It's a way to trick people into hanging out with you, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. But you don't have to do anything. Yeah, it's great.
Yep. Don't have to bring snacks. Yep.
Yeah, always a fun time. These books are a blast.
For links to today's book and the podcast Mama Needs a Movie, be sure to check out the show notes or visit tstlpodcast.com. If you'd like to read the otherworldly synopsis I wrote for today's book, you can also find that on the episode page at tstlpodcast.com. Listen, if you like TSTL and want to help me grow my audience, be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you didn't like the show, why are you still listening? TSTL is part of the Frolic Podcast Network and Culture Media. Once again, I'm your host, Becky Feldman. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your day.